Hello everyone, Nick Marshall is a man in his prime, with a great job and no shortage of female attention. But if he knew what women really think of him, he obviously wouldn't be happy. Nick tends to act in a chauvinistic manner and doesn't often reflect on his behavior. Nevertheless, he's offered a chance to see himself from a different perspective. Nick gets an ability that at first he perceives as a curse. One day, he wakes up and realizes that he can read absolutely every woman's mind. Nick Marshall was born and raised in Las Vegas, where his mother worked in a cabaret show. The boy spent all his time backstage, where he was surrounded by female affection and love. Since his own father wasn't around, the male role models around Nick were cabaret patrons, who were not very respectful of the girls. Nick has grown up, but his life hasn't essentially changed. He spends every night with a new hottie, and during the day, he works at an advertising agency where he promotes products using photos of girls in lingerie. He comes to work later than the others, and his colleagues consider him a big spoiled child. Although very charming, so does his ex-wife, with whom Nick has a teenage daughter. Nick wakes up after a rough night. The maid is cleaning up the mess. Nick brazenly spanks her, and on his way to work, he flirts with every girl he sees. At the cafe, he asks barista Lola for the umpteenth time to go on a date with him. When Nick arrives at work, he is also at the center of attention, as everyone expects him to be promoted to the agency's new creative director. But soon his boss informs him that the world has changed, and now advertising should appeal more to women. Nick's area of expertise is not at all suitable for this plan, so he invites Darcy McGuire to take over instead.
You know I love you, Nick, but it's a woman's world out there. And getting into a woman's psyche is not exactly your strong suit.
Frustrated, Nick leaves to attend his ex-wife's wedding. She goes on her honeymoon, and Nick has to look after their daughter, Alexandra, for 2 weeks. He's not a very good father to her.
Boyfriend, you're only 13 years old.
Am I? I thought I was 15.
Now Alexa will live with her dad, which means that her love life will be put on hold. The girl is set to meet her father in the evening, and Nick heads back to work. Darcy is already there. She introduces herself to everyone and talks about the huge profits of the companies that have started advertising products for women. Nick is jealous of her, as she has taken his job and doesn't take the meeting seriously. Darcy ends the meeting by giving each employee a box of female products so that they have a better understanding of what they will now have to advertise. Nick rolls his eyes, but once home, he decides to try out the female products after all.
Jeez. Ooh, that's hot. Yay. Okay, test the manhood. Here we go.
When Nick is already wearing pantyhose and trying on a bra, Alex returns home with her boyfriend. The awkward moment ends in a quarrel. Alex has long been mad at her father, who was not part of her life, but was busy chasing women. Nick is upset, and for a moment, he genuinely wonders what women want. But suddenly, he slips and falls into the tub with the hairdryer on. He almost manages to jump out of the water, but still gets shocked and falls face down into the floor. The next morning, he's found by the maid, who is surprised by the stuff scattered around him and grumbles at Nick as usual. He talks back to her, but the woman is very surprised to hear that, since she hasn't said a word. Nick goes to work and begins to suspect something is wrong as he hears more and more strange remarks from his colleagues. From all sides, he's attacked by the loud thoughts of the women, who have no idea that Nick can now read them like an open book. The man is scared of his gift, and among other voices, he hears the unusual thoughts of a colleague named Aaron, whom he has never noticed.
Oh God, he nearly killed me. Too bad he missed.
The smiles from his colleagues, which he once thought were flirtatious, now seem to hide accusations of sleaziness and chauvinism. Nick panics and tries to find a fortune teller's phone number to get rid of this curse. He tells his friend that he can read women's minds, but he doesn't believe him. They go to a meeting with Darcy, where she asks for their ideas after experimenting with women's products. Nick has nothing, so he begins to steal his colleagues' thoughts, uttering them before they do. The experiment failed because the thoughts were too personal, and the women felt uncomfortable sharing them publicly. When Nick returns home in the evening, he sees his daughter on the couch with her boyfriend and has a fight with her again. Alexandra's thoughts also add blows to her father's ego. Frustrated, Alex leaves, and Nick tries to recreate the events of last night to get rid of the gift that brings him misery. He goes out on the balcony in the pouring rain and turns on his hairdryer, getting another electric shock. In the morning, he thinks the plan worked, but soon his ability returns. Nick runs to an appointment with a female psychoanalyst, with whom he shares what happened to him. He proves he can read her mind and says he dreams of getting rid of this gift.
Almost every woman I know thinks I'm an...
That's what I thought when I first met you.
Doc, could you please give me a break here?
But the woman can't see why Nick wouldn't use such a unique gift for good. The man agrees and uses his abilities to perfect his seduction skills. Lola finally succumbs to his charms, and Darcy begins to value him as a valuable employee, as his ideas match her company vision. The boss walks in, and Nick showers him with ideas he had just stolen from Darcy before she had time to voice them. Afterward, Nick takes a call from his daughter and pretends they have a great relationship to impress Darcy even more. Darcy gave Nick friendly advice to buy a beautiful dress for Alex's upcoming prom. Nick walks away realizing that his plan is working like a charm.
Candy. She won't last a month.
That same evening, Nick surprises his daughter with an unexpected offer to go shopping, following Darcy's advice. And afterwards, he goes on a date with Lola. She invites him to her place, where Nick discovers that mind reading is great for pleasing girls. Lola is delighted and declares that no one has ever understood her so well without words. Nick continues to visit various places where women spend a lot of time, studying their thoughts and behavior. He also continues to steal Darcy's ideas and bring them to the boss before she does. All of his colleagues have also changed their attitudes toward Nick, who stops making sleazy jokes and shares valuable advice about relationships with men. Darcy gradually begins to fall in love with him.
I'm flirting. What's wrong with me?
Nick is spending more time with Darcy, and it's no longer clear what he's trying to do. To take back his job from her, or just to spend more time with her. Nick and Alexandra are out shopping, and they manage to pick out an outfit for the prom. Of course, Nick eavesdrops on his daughter's thoughts along the way, and finds out she really wants to become older and get more intimate with her boyfriend. Nick, who himself has treated women as objects all his life, tries to warn her against rash actions, but Alex is already too independent for such talks. Besides, one trip to the store has not earned Nick the respect he has lost over the years. Alex also believes that her father has never had a real relationship and leaves without finishing her lunch. Upset, Nick goes home, where instead of the usual soccer, he watches a women's show, and it even makes him shed a tear. Unexpectedly, he gets a call from Darcy, who's feeling lonely, and Nick invites her to a restaurant. The man finishes Darcy's sentences for her, as usual, and Darcy jokingly asks if he can read minds.
Oh, but I don't have to be a mind reader with you. Because you always say what you think.
I know. It's a curse.
She admits that her ex-husband couldn't stand her being so honest all the time, and in general, few people appreciate that quality. Darcy and her ex-husband were colleagues, but soon turned into fierce rivals at work. Then Darcy had to choose between her family and her career. Nick replies that he appreciates Darcy's passion for work and has learned a lot from her, though he lies that he didn't want her position. They end up kissing each other, and as they say goodbye, Nick says he's never felt so good. He hears Darcy's thoughts and realizes that she wants to continue the evening, but he decides to let her go alone. On his way home, he tries to deal with his feelings and desires, when suddenly he notices Lola, who has been waiting by the entryway for a couple of hours. She is very upset that Nick didn't call her after they spent the night together, and finds the only explanation for that.
You talk to me like a woman, you think like a woman. Nick! Come on! Admit it, you're totally and completely gay!
Not to upset the woman, Nick pretends she's right and plays along. Before leaving, Lola makes the man promise that he will let her know first if his partner preferences change suddenly. At work, Nick tries to make it up to Darcy and suggests that she pitch an important presentation to customers without him. Unaware that he stole her ideas, the woman calls the project Nick's baby and refuses to steal his limelight. At the same time, Aaron is still gripped by dark thoughts, and it begins to bother Nick more. However, he doesn't have time for this, as it's time for the presentation. Nick does a great job and secures a huge contract for the company. Darcy, infatuated with him, rejoices over his success as if it were her own. Nick is tormented by unbearable guilt and sits down at his laptop to write a heartfelt confession email to Darcy. He is interrupted by Darcy with a bottle of champagne in her hands. She wants to show Nick her apartment, which she recently bought. Once there, they start kissing and dancing, but that doesn't amount to anything else. Besides, the apartment is still being renovated and has no furniture. In the morning, Nick rushes to work, knowing that his boss will offer him a promotion and fire Darcy. Turns out that Darcy beat him to it and has already signed the resignation papers. Nick convinces his boss that all the ideas belong to Darcy, and if he wants to keep the company from going bankrupt, the boss must hire her again. Nick wants to talk with Darcy in private, but suddenly, he learns that Aaron has failed to show up for work for the first time. He realizes that she may have done something bad to herself and goes looking for her. It's pouring outside, and Nick can't find the address, so he asks an older woman who points him in the right direction with a smile on her face. Nick goes to a narrow alley where lightning strikes a transformer and showers sparks on him. After making sure he's not injured, the man finds the girl's house, but her apartment is empty. In the bedroom, he finds a suicide note, But fortunately, a terrified Aaron is already standing behind him with a tennis racket in hand to defend herself against the burglar.
Mr. Marshall, if you're here because I didn't show up for work today, I'm sorry. I was just about to call, I swear.
No, I'm not here because you didn't show up for work.
While talking to her, Nick suddenly realizes that he can't hear her thoughts anymore. He is a little shocked, but still sighs with relief. But that's not why Nick is here, and he asks Aaron about her plans she didn't have time to fulfill. The girl is very touched by the attention, and Nick recalls that she once applied for a job of a copywriter. He conducts an interview right at her house and promotes her, and afterwards rushes to Darcy's house. But the woman doesn't answer the door and ignores calls, continuing to lie in the bathroom. Nick is sad, and he goes to the bar to drink alone. That's when he gets a call from his ex-wife, who is concerned about how Alexandra's prom is going. Nick has completely forgotten about it in all the chaos and rushes to fix it. When he arrives, he discovers that Alexandra is a mess. She's crying in the bathroom because she wasn't ready to get intimate with her boyfriend after the dance, and he immediately dumped her for his ex-girlfriend. Nick replies that he's very proud of his daughter for being able to stand up for herself and not give in to the pressure.
I know what it's like to be a woman.
Thanks to her father's support, Alexandra calms down and feels confident again. They return home, and the daughter falls asleep, while Nick continues to think about Darcy. Although it's past midnight, Nick goes to Darcy's place, and Darcy lets Nick inside. She sadly informs him that she is going to sell the apartment, which she can no longer afford. Nick tells her that she doesn't have to, because he convinced their boss not to fire her. With a heavy heart, he admits to stealing her ideas. However, the more he tried to create problems for Darcy, the more he fell in love with her. When he saw the dignity with which the woman accepted her resignation and decided that Nick deserved the position more than she did, he couldn't keep quiet and remain a scoundrel. So even now with this confession, he saves not her, but his own soul. He says he's sorry, but Darcy replies that since she has been reinstated in her position, her first decision will be to fire Nick. Now it's his turn to take the hit and humbly walk away, since he deserves it. Nick is sure that Darcy will never forgive him, and everything is over between them.
And don't let a little thing like me firing you stand in your way.
However, she still has feelings for Nick, and what happened at work won't change that. Darcy appreciated Nick's confession. She just didn't know how to respond to his sincerity. Nick happily returns to kiss his beloved. As always, check out the name of the movie in the video description. In the meantime, tell us in the comments, how would you use the ability to read the opposite sex's mind? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button to see even more cool recaps.